Greetings, fellow viewers, and welcome to the Entertainment Zone. A zone of light, color, sound, and imagination. But a zone where we can do the Vlogcast.
There he is.
And I welcome you all
Alright.
here. Of course, I welcome Dane and Dave back with us again. And of course, my wonderful co-host, Kotobuki Jake, which he is going to be leading us off today because this is a special month. July 10th marks a special ritual that happens only twice a year, where a place that normally sells pen and paper does a wonderful thing where they place Criterion collection items on sale. And that is known as the Barnes & Noble's Criterion sale.
Yeah, when you said pen and paper, I thought you were about to talk about Office Max.
Yeah, when I was going to say, like, for all the kids out there, Barnes & Noble is a store where you go to buy these things called books, which is like the internet, except there's no internet required to access the information. It's all conveniently bound together with paper, with words written on the paper.
You see, in our area, kids are familiar with Barnes & Noble because it's attached to the mall. But they probably know it as the place to go to get something from Starbucks and then use the restroom, and not the mall restroom, but the good one. But yeah. So every year, at least the last 3 or 4 sales, Septum and I have had fun doing our picks for, well, why doesn't Criterion release this? And a couple of them have actually been picked up. We covered 1984, and it is now officially out there. And I know we didn't officially cover, but we talked about Bruce Lee, and they've got a pretty awesome Bruce Lee set that we talked about earlier tonight that, well, for our viewers, I guess it'll be tomorrow night. But basically, we thought it'd be fun, since we're doing this sort of everyone get together to shoot the breeze sort of deal. It might be more fun to do a sort of a vlogcast where everyone came with a few films that they wanted to see released. And I think 3 per. Hopefully we'll be able to have a fun, freewheeling discussion that doesn't go far off the rails, but gives us each a chance to put 3 out. And we'll see how that goes.
That's why I was saying it probably would just focus on a couple of us per episode, because I think even one.
You think I'm doing this for the full month?
Oh, well, at least for 2 weeks, because I don't think all 4 of us are going to get our 3 out at this format. Not with our time.
So I do think we could do we can rotate, do each one present one, and see how far we get in one episode, and that might be a good way to go.
Yeah. What we've covered has been posted in the group.
Right. And if by any chance Mo or Dustin should join us for a later one, then they can throw something out. But I'd like to hear different perspectives. But I'm going to go ahead and kick off, apparently. I decided to come with a theme. Since on Movies Galore, this month is Superhero Month, I thought it would be fun to think of some of those films that Criterion should release. And I'm going to lead off with kind of a gimme. It's kind of an obvious one, and yet Criterion hasn't done it. And that would be Tim Burton's Batman. I think that would be a film that is long overdue for a full bells and whistles release. Lots of good times. They could even go 2-disc release with that and have plenty of stuff to put in it. I don't know. Maybe you guys will know offhand. I don't think they've done any Tim Burton films, have they?
No. Well, I think part of the reason why is because, well, Tim Burton films, at least the ones that he's done with, Disney or with Warner Brothers, they tend to be profitable enough on their own to where they don't necessarily need to farm them out to a specialty label to give them that extra sheen in order for them to sell anything. Not to say that, you know, that there is an artistic merit to that film, because there most definitely is, but generally speaking, the Criterion Collection, they will specialize in, well, older films or contemporary films that are a little bit more on the art house side of things, or you know, you'll see ones that are foreign films, or you know, things of that nature. Now they will throw you a genre curveball, like obviously Godzilla, or like Repo Man, or you know, they'll throw some different ones your way,
or
but
Armageddon,
which
The Rock.
and Armageddon and The Rock, like, it's funny because I'm someone that I think it's really important to watch Michael Bay films as far as understanding the what can be done with the visual medium with film, as far as like just basic film theory and like montage and quick cuts and how to convey something visually. And the different essays that were written for those releases, the Rock's essay was written by Roger Ebert, and the Armageddon one, that was written by forget her name, but she was a professor of Michael Bay's at Wesleyan University, and so she knew him when he was a student, and could see his evolution and the fact that he was like visually he was able to think far beyond his contemporaries. And you know, so that I think that, yeah, they do throw in some genre ones every now and again, but I think because Tim Burton's Batman, I think it does so well on its own that it's not necessarily in need of it, especially since they put out that 4K not too long ago. But still, it's artistically speaking, sure, there's plenty to talk about as far as the German expressionist origins of the design of Gotham City.
Well, and also not just that, but like I actually, in my senior symposium seminar, I always get those confused. I took a symposium and a seminar, and one of them was like the one semester, and it was very targeted on satire, and the other one was the overall English major. I think that was the seminar class. It was the same professor for both, which is part of the reason now. But I actually, and I've mentioned this class before because of the running gag that we had of it all comes back to Job or sex. But like, we were discussing the Gothic in literature, and I had a presentation. I had to give a class presentation, and I actually showed a scene from Batman as an example of the Gothic in modern storytelling. And I showed the scene where the Joker guns down his former boss. And I just thought that was like an excellent example of that. But you're right, the architecture has a very Gothic feel to it. And it's a very, but sort of like with the color scheme, sort of an avant-garde sort of weird vibe to it. But I really think that it is, in very, very many ways, it is a classic film that has a great deal of artistic merit in of itself. And you're right, Burton does have those ties to Disney and to Warner Brothers. And we have actually talked about this before. We have gone very light on our coverage of Disney and Disney-attached films, because Disney is all about controlling their stuff under lock and key, the vault and all that kind of crap, you know. And Criterion has in their mission statement that they try to keep stuff in print. They don't always succeed. They have dropped several titles, but they try to get things into print, but they also try to be a house for keeping things in print. And again, I don't think that's an issue for Batman, but it would be one that I would love to see get a full deluxe treatment. I'd love to see it with that Criterion branding. And you could even do a two-film like the Burton Batman or whatever with that one and Batman Returns. Yeah. Not to cheapen the works of the late Joel Schumacher, You could almost have his two on there as a bonus feature. I would not push for Batman and Robin as a standalone Criterion.
Oh, they should do. You know what they should do is, well, I think we kicked this around before, but like for some of those like really notoriously bad films, they need to do like a prestige label. Which I mean, technically speaking, like Shout Factory, sometimes they'll put out these ones that are like notoriously bad, but they have a cult following. But
I could see where Tim Burton's collection, Batman collection, is like on the Criterion collection, and then Lorber picking up the tail end and doing Robin and Batman Forever separately, because Kino Lorber seems to be the avant-garde tail end of whatever Criterion doesn't seem to put out.
And Kino would also be an ideal location for Burton's work. I mean, but he has several Criterion-worthy films, and we could get into those. But one thing I would say is a possible bonus feature with almost anything with Tim Burton's name on it. He is well known for having gotten his start partly as an animator, but also I understand he did a lot of short films when he was younger. And it'd be nice to see some of those thrown on as a bonus feature, because that's one thing I really enjoy about the Criterion collection. The original Frankenweenie would be one. But I do like how oftentimes they will show short films that are early representations of an author's work. And considering how rarely short films get a proper release in the first place, that's always a really nice, sort of bonus to that. And like, for example, with the Trilogia del Guillermo del Toro, they had his film Geometria, which is a really weird little film, but it was a nice little bonus. It didn't really have anything to do with the movies, but it showed his evolution as a filmmaker. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, so that'd be my first one. So
actually,
I might throw in there Ed Wood. That would be a good Criterion.
Ed Wood would be an excellent one, and I think of all his films, it would be one of the best for the Criterion treatment.
Most definitely.
You could that one. You could almost have Plan 9 as a bonus feature. That'd be great.
Why not do a double? Well, because Plan 9 is in the public domain, so it's like, they could do they could do a 2-pack.
Right. Didn't that one also get into the production of Glenn or Glenda or a couple of those others?
Ed Wood, yeah. I got it. What you do is you make you do a box set where you do the 3 films that it covers, Glenn or Glenda, Bride of the Monster, and Plan 9, and you do a really good restoration job on those, and then you have Ed Wood, the movie, right after that. That would be cool.
Sort of like,
which actually
and Ed Wood being almost the special feature.
Right. Yeah, well, but what that actually does bring up a good point, which is that the Criterion collection, that, like we already said, kind of what their usual the usual kinds of films they put out, what they tend to be. One thing that they have been doing, especially recently, because, well, they can, why not? They've been putting out a lot more public domain films. Now, granted, they've been doing their own really high quality print transfers that are, copyrighted by Janus Films, and so they have those, so they can make money off of them. But so they're not like the crappy normal transfers that you see. But the point is that they have been delving more into the realm of public domain, so that automatically opens up a whole slew of really great films that are, for whatever reason, still in the public domain. And they put out Edward G. Ulmer's Detour. They put out Night of the Living Dead. They put out quite a lot of films that are really, really, really important films. Haxan. They put them out because, well, they can. They're in the public domain and they are influential. Now, there are some that, for example, Kino, they put out The Phantom of the Opera from 1925. Criterion could easily do that, because, well, and actually Image beat them to it. but they did like the color tinted version of it for whatever reason. Yeah, I think that once you include public domain, then that opens it up significantly.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Arrow is probably the closest thing to Criterion out there, but there's almost an antithesis to a Criterion in a couple of ways. One, they really
who have stepped up to the plate to make like these gigantic and ginormous box sets.
No.
You know, I mean, just recently there was the Al Adamson box set from Severin, which is on the level with the Arrow box sets out there. You know, so.
I mean, I will say that Arrow does one thing though that I don't care for is that their stuff goes out of print extremely quickly. So they're really not interested in keeping things in print. It's
Yeah.
I'm only aware of one Arrow title that I have. There may be a couple others, and that's that really awesome Oscar-winning Japanese film Departures, which was an Arrow release, and I happened to catch it in time. And I believe that release is way out of print at this point. I'm thrilled that I have it because it's a phenomenal film, but that would be one that Criterion should snap up to get back in print, just because, you know.
Well, the Arrow ones that I got during their big summer sale, when I was like really into rebuilding the collection hardcore, the ones that I filled up my cart with, I want to say like 50 something movies. And I knew I would whittle them down pretty severely, but I was just like, I want to have choices. And so I just said, just screw it. I'm just going to put in everything I could remotely possibly want. And then I whittled it down. What I eventually came away with that I thought was the deciding criteria was, I tried to go for Arrow releases, and this is from the actual UK website. I tried to go for releases that I couldn't find in the US, because obviously Arrow relatively recently they started expanding into the US, and so that's how we know about them. But there are quite a lot of Arrow releases that are not in the US for whatever reason, and so I tried to find as many that would be unique as possible, and also things that I didn't already have or I didn't have that edition or whatever. A good example is like Network, which is it's in my top 10, I think, as far as favorite films of all time. If not top 10, then it's very close to the top 10. But it was one that it got an Arrow Academy release, which is basically like their Shout Select or their Criterion release or whatever. I picked that up because I was like, well, that one, I'm surprised that one has not gotten a nicer edition in the US than it has. It just has that standard Warner Brothers release. That would be a really good one for the Criterion collection, I think.
Right. Well, actually, I guess since we're kind of wandering to different titles, if you wanted, do you want to put that forward as one to discuss, or did you have one ready to go?
I've got actually. I was making a list just now, a different one. So I've already mentioned Network. I've already mentioned Ed Wood. The Elephant Man would have been on here, but obviously that has been rightfully rectified. Very happy about that. You mentioned
like the first time we did this, when I started drafting the list, I had The Princess Bride on mine, and then like a week later they announced they were releasing it, and I was like,
that's pretty sweet. This one actually might be a little off the beaten track, and this may work, it may not, I don't know, but I think it would actually be really, really cool if they could release and preferably like remaster and just really make it look nice, like those really cheap like DVD sets of all the various old cartoon shorts that are all in the public domain, up to and including the like this Max Fleischer Superman cartoons and things like that, and also just a lot of like Fleischer one-offs and things like that. or like you find like those really early claymation films from Russia or something like that. I think that would actually be cool if they could just like really go back into some of these more obscure animation pieces of animation from all over the world and do something like that. Like I think it was Kino did like a women filmmaker set and did like a African Americans in film set that was like drawing from way early in film history. So maybe something like that would be kind of neat to throw together. It would probably be a lot of work, and I don't know what condition those prints are in, but still.
So what would your parameters be? You think like over a certain time frame, or are you thinking?
Yeah, you would probably have to whittle it down by the particular decades, like the early whatever, like the earliest animations from all over the world, kind of like the Martin Scorsese World Cinema Project. Those sets, but with a ton of really influential animated shorts. And like I'm thinking of like that there are these there's this video that I saw. It was all about like the creepiest pieces of really old animation, and there are some, and they're really well done. They're really important films, but they do kind of have a creepiness to them because they're so old. And so like, especially if it's claymation, then some of the animations are really jerky, and it can be kind of unnerving for modern audiences, but they're nonetheless important. So you'd have to come up with some kind of theme like that. But that's just like a very general one. But more specific ones, I am shocked that this is not on Blu-ray in any form, let alone from the Criterion collection, because it would be perfect. Is Pink Floyd The Wall?
That's a little bit of a, but yeah, that's not on Blu-ray at all.
Not at all. It's only on. DVD.
That would be a good. Yeah, I would love to see that fully remastered. I mean, it was a creepy, weird movie, but it had a hell of a soundtrack.
It's a great soundtrack.
And it's one of the reasons. Again, we've talked about the merits of Blu-ray versus DVD and whatever. One of the reasons I like the Blu-ray is the idea that if they really did remaster the soundtrack, that usually can be a big selling point for me, and especially a movie like that that's built on the music. That makes a lot of sense. Dave, you look like you had a thought a minute ago. What was that?
Well, my first choice that I would probably go with would probably be my favorite Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Yeah,
that Criterion release in a heartbeat.
I would buy that.
I mean, yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay with the Arrow release, but I think they are on a level with Criterion release. You know, I mean that would be like the cream of the crop to start with.
Right.
And I mean, they did a phenomenal job with the Blu-ray release that Arrow did. But I do think that I would be curious about what Criterion would bring to the table if they put together a release for Killer Clowns on their label. I mean, I believe it's reached a kind of artistic value with as much as remastering as it has had. So, I mean, and to be a film that is in like several different genres of its own, I do think that it has value in that line of contingency.
Yeah.
The film I would put under Criterion would actually be a doofer with the Invisible Boy and the Forbidden Planet.
Forbidden Planet would be really good for a Criterion release.
I believe that deserves deserves a level of, especially since they went in and recolored it. You know, I've seen the version that was uncolored, and it was so dull. But I still love the story for it, and when they went back and recolored it, they didn't take away from it. You know, I mean, it enhanced it, and I think when they came out with the sets that they did on Blue, I mean, I know it is on Blu-ray, but it's often put together with the Invisible Boy, which is why I would put that as the second film on the thing.
That's one where I would say they would need to make sure to include both the colorized and the non-colorized versions to give you a choice, really. But also,
it wasn't in black and white at all. It was in Technicolor. So it's just they went back and put more colors.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Brightened it up.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Kind of on the same respect as, you know, Ray Harryhausen did with She. So,
well, one thing we should establish right off the bat is part of what this is all like our wish list, but so some of the practical realities that ultimately decide what gets put out are which companies, which studios they have a licensing relationship with. And like, for example, like Warner Brothers, they only started to sort of get into the Criterion world. For the most part, they don't really bother because they have Warner Archive, or they, you know, put out whatever special edition they want to do. Same with like Disney. They're going to just do their own thing.
I would like the works of F.W. Murnau to get a Criterion.
Which, I mean, Kino's been putting some of those out intermittently, but and they also put out the Fritz Lang set that I have, which is really cool.
I want that set. I need to get it.
It's a good one. The one that I would have said, if we were to do our wish list, that you know, and again, Warner Brothers, they're getting more into it very slowly, because like something like Barry Lyndon would have been perfect for the Criterion collection, but up until relatively recently, I would have said, "Oh, that'll never happen," because Warner Brothers, they keep their films pretty close to their chest. But then it did come out, and I was like,
how many of Kubrick's films do they have under their control?
They have they've put out Paths of Glory, The Killer.
Well, no, Criterion. No, I mean Warner Brothers. How many of them are they attached to?
Well, let's see. Well, they put out the original release of Barry Lyndon, which I think is still in circulation. They have Lolita. They have 2001: A Space Odyssey, A Clockwork Orange. Which again, 2001, it was put out by MGM, but the Warner Brothers bought that film.
And I'd argue all of those deserve Criterion treatment.
Oh yeah, well, and like Barry Lyndon, The Shining, Full Metal Jacket, Eyes Wide Shut. You know, pretty much everything from, well, for sure from A Clockwork Orange onward, but also like 2001 was bought from MGM's library, and some of the outliers are Spartacus is still owned by Universal. They keep that pretty close to the chest. And also Dr. Strangelove was put out by Columbia Pictures. So,
I swear I saw Spartacus on the Criterion collection.
Well, Criterion does.
It was on the DVD of it. Yeah, they haven't put it out on
they
Blu-ray.
They do have Dr. Strangelove, which I need to get that edition. They do have Paths of Glory and The Killers, I believe.
Well, the Killing, and then
The
Killing, but then also on the special feature talking about another movie that's on there, Killer's Kiss. Yeah. His second feature is also on that same disc.
That's the one he tried to destroy, isn't it?
No, you're thinking of Fear and Desire. That was his very first one, which that one's easily his worst film, but you can't really hold it against him too much, as he was literally a self-taught filmmaker, and he was someone who didn't have a lot of formal education, because quite frankly he didn't really need it, because he was such a self-taught person in general, that it's like that would have just held him back.
You think Criterion would jump on that one? I think Kino released it, right?
Yes, they did.
You think Criterion would, because they seem to try really hard to get the filmmakers' first and second films.
Yeah.
They seem to go really hard for the old ones. Like I feel like the only one they've put out so far from Christopher Nolan is his first film, Following, which is kind of a weird, creepy, weird film.
Memento would be a good choice.
Memento would be a phenomenal choice for Criterion to release. I'm waiting, but I think that's a Warner Brothers release, isn't it?
Well, yes and no. Now, see, here's the weird thing with Warner Brothers. Every now and again, when it comes to a box set of something, they will manage to get some kind of licensing deal to where this thing that they don't own the rights to, they'll be able to put it out nonetheless. For example, like with the Blu-ray Christopher Nolan set, not the 4K, but the Blu-ray set. Right. They did put out Memento, and it did have the Warner Brothers sticker, or it did have the Warner Brothers logo on the spine, but it is normally was put out by Lionsgate, because I think which originally it was put out by, I want to say Artisan or something like that. Something that Lionsgate eventually bought their film catalog, but and then same with I used to have a Kubrick set that had Spartacus and had Dr. Strangelove in it, despite those not being Warner Brothers owned films. And so it just really depends on what kind of deals they can strike. And for a while there, they had that co-releasing deal with Paramount, and so you would see things like the Friday the 13th set, where you'd have the Paramount one next to the New Line Cinema ones. And then once that deal expired, then it was like, well, okay, that's that. Or you'd see these, you'd see a Warner Brothers film and a Paramount film on together on a 2-pack, or those 4 film favorites or something.
Look at the Bruce Lee collection as a good example of that. Enter the Dragon has never been on any Bruce Lee collection, because Enter the Dragon is a Warner Brothers property.
Except for the new Criterion release. Really,
and it looks like a cool release.
How many films are on the new Blu-ray?
It's for the Bruce Lee?
Yeah. Their entire
it's 5 films, but they do include other films as bonus features.
Including Game of Death 2.
Yeah. So, and actually we have... I was going to say, we have kind of informally talked about a Kubrick collection, like a complete Kubrick collection as an essential Criterion thing. We didn't really go into too much depth on it because we went overboard with collections on our first video.
There have been various Kubrick sets in general throughout the ages. So, I mean, it's not like we haven't had numerous Kubrick box sets, but with
the definitive one with all the films, really awesome bonus feature.
That would be great if they could get all those together. It's something that I think with the ownerships and everything, I think it would be
tricky.
Impossible. It would be tricky, if not impossible. Same with but it would be less difficult than, say, if they were to try and get every Alfred Hitchcock film, because he directed a lot of films, more than
that would be a heck of a collection. I'd be all about that. But
it would be ridiculously expensive. You'd have to split them up into 2 or 3 parts.
I should have brought my Bergman set down. That would be every bit as massive as that. It'd be cool.
But it can be done.
Yeah.
That's why we talk about the Woody Allen collection.
Talking about issues with rights and whatever. Brandon, you missed a couple of, but Dane was talking about doing old school animated shorts as a collection. And I think we talked about the idea of doing I would love to see Criterion round up every Oscar nominated short film and do a documentary collection, a animated collection, and a live action collection. But considering how many of those are owned by either Disney or Warner Brothers, that would make it very, very difficult.
Very difficult.
But there are some really phenomenal short films that have been nominated over the years, and a lot of them are you just can't get them.
Yeah,
And that would be really cool.
That would be really cool. But like specifically, what I was saying before about the animated shorts that I'm thinking of are the ones that are so old that they are pretty much all in the public domain, except that the Criterion Collection, they could go back and really remaster them in a way that they deserve. Now we're talking about Kubrick. One that they really, really need to do, and they might be able to swing this in some form or fashion, at least with a few more titles, maybe. If they could swing like a Paul Thomas Anderson set, like if they could do like Hard Eight, Boogie Nights, Magnolia, they already did Punch Drunk Love, which I am so thankful for because that was prime Criterion Collection territory, and thankfully they jumped on that.
I would definitely pick Magnolia. I love that film. I would definitely that up.
There would be blood. There will be blood. That would be perfect for the Criterion Collection. The Master especially would be great.
The thing is, we've largely held off. I mean, he jumped the gun with the Woody Allen one, but I've largely held off on doing like complete collections of people who are still working. You know, if you were thinking more focused, like 3 or 4 films. But I agree. One day I would love to be able to have a complete P.T. Anderson collection there on the shelf. Just like one day, I'd love to have a Coen Brothers collection. One day, I'd love to have a Sam Raimi collection. You know, some of these, but I wouldn't want to jump the gun and do it while they're still working. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But plus, like the more like someone like Sam Raimi, it's like, well, you would have to somehow get the Spider-Man films and Oz the Great and Powerful and Evil Dead and this and that all under one roof, and it's like good luck with that.
And convince the Criterion it's worth the effort. Yes,
exactly.
I could see. The thing about Criterion is, I think it's set up for like a very specific, type of film. I think,
and not this type.
And that's why we haven't gotten some of the recent releases that we have. Now, I could see the Evil Dead trilogy going on something like. I could see it going on something like Arrow.
About to go out of print.
Well, I mean, they already put out Army of Darkness on Scream Factory, which that seems about right.
But yeah, I mean, there are some Raimi films that would be right at home on Criterion. They would just be like not really, you might normally think of them more for somewhere else. Like, I would argue he's had some really good kind of horror/thriller films that are a cut above some of the others. Like Brandon's already put forward a Simple Plan as one. But like, I think The Gift was a thoroughly underrated film, and that one would be a good choice for this. And there's some others, but just for the fun of some of the others, just for the fun of it. But like I said, I mean, this one's about to go back out of print. And, that is, again, with the idea of Criterion One trying to keep things in print. That's a good thing. But yeah, some of these people, they have kind of done here or there. They've kind of done it piecemeal. Yeah, like you said, with Paul Thomas Anderson, they did do Punch Drunk Love. And wasn't there one more? I feel like there was one more.
I don't think so. Not yet. But I mean,
and
they
then
should put out. Go ahead.
And sometimes they kind of goof. Like with the Coen brothers, they've only done 2. They've done Inside Llewyn Davis, which is great. That one, he did it. And they've done Blood Simple. Yeah. But the very best bonus I have the collector's edition of Blood Simple. The best bonus feature on it, they did not get for the Criterion release. So it's like, if I ever get that, I'm going to have to keep both of them. Because the edition I have, the Coen brothers hired a guy to play a British historian to talk about the film, and he's waxing rhapsodic about all the really artsy stuff that's going on. And the guy, he comes off as a total idiot who's completely cut off from reality. And it's great. It's one of the best commentary tracks I've ever watched. And I wish that was on the Criterion edition.
Wait,
Well, every now and again, DVD releases, every now and again, they'll throw you for a loop as far as like the rules of attraction, having done the famous Carrot Top commentary and things like that. Which that's real. That's real.
It's good time.
Or like one of my favorites is there's some really good commentaries like the Adam West and Burt Ward commentary track for Batman the movie.
Nice.
Any Weird Al track that he does for like UHF or the Weird Al show.
Or like where they brought back Spinal Tap to do the commentary for that film.
Speaking of which, there's a film that it got a Criterion DVD release, but they just need to put it on Blu-ray. That would be great.
Actually, I've got one that I would put forward. My choice for last week, Across the Universe, which I'm surprised I haven't brought that up sooner. I think it's because of the timing guidelines that you have forward there, but now it's
that film was 20. That was 07. That's never been
older now. It's like
never been within. Yeah.
So
we do have a guideline. We don't like it when Criterion puts out films that are less than 5 years old. And my idea is that they need time to marinate. You don't get an idea of the film's impact if you release it on Criterion right after it comes out. Like when they do immediate.
Yeah, it's kind of jumping the gun,
It is.
But then again, their mission statement is the best of classic and contemporary cinema from all over the world. So that's where the
I am thrilled that Netflix seems to be partnering with Criterion to put their stuff out. But even so, we've got Roma came out this spring, and it was a 2018 release. Marriage Story's coming out this month, and it was a 2019 release. They have announced the 2019 releases of The Atlantics, The Irishman, American Factory, and Parasite. They have not yet announced the 17 releases, Icarus and Mudbound. Beast of No Nation was like 2015. These ones have been out a while. They should get the front of the line for Criterion, not The Irishman. That just came out last November, so it's like, he got lucky. He got a version of Icarus. But I really do want to see Criterion put out Mudbound and Beast of No Nation, The Ballad of Buster Scruggs, some of these films. But it would be nice if they would wait 3 to 5 years instead of doing it right away. But I am thrilled that they, both Roma and Marriage Story, they're putting a lot of bonus features on them. So, it's
one that would be really good that I just thought about that you had said. One that I never saw it, but I heard nothing but great things was the documentary The Act of Killing. And that seems like it would be appropriate. I had some other ones that I thought of, which were like I already mentioned Paul Thomas Anderson films. I think one of the Coen Brothers films that I'm surprised didn't get put out by them yet is A Serious Man. I think that was
Brandon's favorite. It all comes back to Job.
It does in that movie.
That one definitely does.
Quite literally, yeah.
But that one seems tailor-made for Criterion. A lot of theirs do, and I think we've actually covered. I feel like on this channel, I've already put forward. I think The Big Lebowski, Fargo, and O Brother Art Thou. I do think all three of those need it. Really, most of their films deserve the release, but some of them would be more like I wouldn't really push for a solo release of Burn After Reading or Lady Killers or one of those, but a 2-pack of the Ealing Studios Lady Killers with the Coen Brothers version might be a really cool one. That'd be a good. And they do have a Criterion release of Kind Hearts and Coronets. So why don't they do more from that studio? So.
Actually, Dave, what are some ones that you would think of but what movies do you feel like should get the kind of Criterion treatment of the essays, extra lenses, things like that?
I think that there should be. Well, me and my fiance were discussing a little bit, a bit of this beforehand, and I know one of hers would be Nosferatu.
Yeah.
Oh, very good one.
That one hasn't had it yet, has it?
I had,
Put it out.
I know you weren't here for the two that I mentioned. I mentioned Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Yeah.
And I mentioned
Forbidden Planet.
Forbidden Planet and The Invisible Boy as a double feature on Criterion. But I would like to see a Hammer film horror collection here in Criterion. And another one of my fiance's choices for Criterion is, what would the Universal Monster collection look like on a collection with Criterion?
Ooh, that could be fun.
Hey, Mike McNally, or Michael
That
McNally.
would be good if
Hi, Mike.
that'd be good. The only thing I'd say there is that it's a little bit like the Tim Burton's Batman situation, where the Universal Monsters were such an iconic IP for Universal that they're probably feeling secure enough in their own abilities to sell that they don't really need anybody else. But still, like, that would be a good restoration effort for sure.
Oh yeah, I'd love to see them fully restored, and
That would be kind of cool.
Well, one that that got me thinking. So Universal, that got me thinking about The Last Temptation of Christ, which is on Criterion, and then that got me thinking about Scorsese. One that I wish would get a release, which it probably won't, because I think a lot of people just don't really know what to do with this film, is Hugo. I wish that Hugo would get a release.
Hugo, didn't we say that?
I think we did put Hugo in our list, but I don't have it listed here. But
that would be a good, again, working directors. If Scorsese ever retires or, God forbid, passes in the foreseeable future, and they could definitely put the end cap on his career, that would be a massive collection. But it could be a phenomenal.
Oh yeah.
I invest in that collection.
What's that?
I invest in a Criterion collection.
Yeah. But that could be a phenomenal.
Even though this was a great thing to get at the time, because when Sam was going out of business, I picked up this complete Sherlock Holmes collection. Now,
a Basil Rathbone?
There's any real extras on it. So so I would like to see if Criterion collection could come out with a complete Basil Rathbone and collection out there. Even though they were restored here, seeing if they could restore them a little further. MPI, I believe, owns the rights to them at the moment, but
one that would be up their alleyway, the Turnbridge trilogy.
Yeah.
That would be right up Criterion's alleyway.
It would be. It's an early collection. Yeah.
I would like to see it because it's kind of out of print right now. But one, it's local filmmakers. Two, it is a really good set. And three, it would keep it in print, which would be a great.
And imagine the plethora if they really, really, really dug in and really brought their A game. Imagine the plethora of bonus features for Man with the Plan.
Oh yeah, you could have
some great stuff there. You could have some great stuff. But one thing I do want to come back around. I mentioned I was going to go thematically with superheroes because it's Superhero Month. Another one I would put forward is a Guillermo del Toro twofer of the Hellboy films. And I do have this set, which covers Kronos, Pan's Labyrinth, and Devil's Backbone. And it is a kick this is a kick-ass collection. It's really awesome. I love the set. I love how they put it together so well, with all the films they fold out to each film and whatnot. But the thing that really stands out in this one is Del Toro was an active participant in getting this together. He is a major film nerd, and I would love to see a Hellboy set. Yeah, I would love to see a Hellboy set where he really goes all in like he did with this set, and it would be really cool. I would really think that would be an awesome collection. And even though of all his films, that might be the films that would least scream Criterion, because they might be a little bit reluctant to do superhero films. I think that would be a really good one. And you could even almost include his inclusion of the Blade. You could do his Blade as a bonus feature on there or something like that, but you could, and I would like to hear his take on the new Hellboy and all that. I still haven't seen it, but I would love to hear his take on that whole thing.
Well, what's interesting? You brought up something. I think as far as superhero, which I don't know if they would do this given the fact that there are sequels, but I was thinking of maybe the not the first three because he did a few movies before this, but I was thinking of if you did a 3-pack of The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, and Signs, which I know that Touchstone, aka Disney, I know that they have put that out in the UK. I know that exists, but for the Criterion treatment, that actually would be pretty darn good. And Unbreakable technically counts.
Well, actually, along those lines, I would be more inclined to pair Unbreakable with Split and Glass and give Sixth Sense Sixth Sense probably should get its own release, its own treatment. But
that would be fantastic. But the East Rail, they call it the East Rail 177 trilogy or whatever. Walmart, I think, put that one out. With those 3 films in there, which would be. Yeah, if they could do well, here's the thing that I'm kind of wondering at this point, because I love the Criterion Collection, of course, and we all do. But the thing that they, as of right now, that they have not done that they need to do is they need, with whatever releases that they do, eventually they're going to have to get onto the 4K bandwagon, like an actual 4K disc, not just a 4K restoration, but an actual 4K disc. And that's part of why, when I knew that Columbia Classics collection was coming out, the one that was the 6 films in 4K, that was why I didn't feel bad about sending my friend in England, Tony Newton. I sent him a couple of films kind of as a surprise present, one of which was my Criterion of Doctor Strangelove, which at the time that I bought it, I could only find the Region B version of it, because I guess for whatever reason the Region A Criterion of that film was not out, or it was out, but it was really hard to come by, so I wasn't sure if it was taken out of print.
Come and gone. It's come and gone. I found that kind of strange.
It was strange, but I felt no qualms with giving him that one, because I thought, in the United States, a Region B is gonna be kind of tough to sell unless you're finding someone who specifically has a region free player. But he's in England. In England, it's he's good there. Plus, I knew that I was getting it back in better quality with the 4K restoration, which.
Have you watched the 4K?
I will. I watched the 4K restoration of the Lawrence of Arabia, and it looks beautiful. It looks well. Here's the thing: it is obviously it was shot on film, so you're going to see plenty of grain and everything because it's just unavoidable. But as far as restoration efforts go, it's really, really good, and everything looks really sharp and everything. it's a tough. It's a tough.
Even more distracting to see Alec Guinness as an Arabian prince.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what's funny about that though is that yes, technically it is brown face technically, but if you've ever seen the real Prince Faisal and Alec Guinness side by side, they look really similar.
Oh, okay.
So yes, it technically is brown facing, but as far as brown facing goes, they did a pretty darn good job because facially they look really, really close. Same with Peter O'Toole and the real T.E. Lawrence. They look very close. So
I am curious though, when you do get a chance to watch Doctor Strangelove, I am curious to hear how much clearer it is, because I think I've only seen that on DVD at this. I'm not even sure I've seen the Blu-ray.
I've only got my
so I'd be curious to know how clear it is.
I did back when I had the old Kubrick set that for a short time had Spartacus and Doctor Strangelove together, along with all the other ones that Warner Brothers owns the rights to. So for a short time I did have that, but and that restoration looked pretty good, but that was 1080p and that was back in like 2011, so this will inevitably be better. But like the Lawrence of Arabia one that I watched, like it's one of those things where it is, you can definitely see the grain, but also that is unavoidable because they were shooting on film, and plus it's a sign of how they shot it and everything. And it's not like I've seen like 2K restorations of like I watched Emmanuel and the Last Cannibals, or I watched Jungle Holocaust, and those ones you could really tell that the source print was not the best because it's like grainy in a bad way. And here it's like an acceptable amount of grain, and it's the grain is evenly. Well, the grain is evenly distributed, and it doesn't do a lot of like the. Some people have criticized some 4K restorations of doing too much in the way of digital cleanup to where things look kind of artificial, and I suppose that's the other side of the argument there. But so I think as far as getting a healthy balance there, I think that Lawrence of Arabia's restoration achieves a good balance. But to tie it back into the larger point, I think that is something that the Criterion Collection, they will eventually have to get with the program as far as putting out actual 4K discs. But even so, it's I have seen actually some really good 4K, even though they're played back in 1080p, but they're 4K restorations. Like a good example is The Thing, which I watched it was the Arrow release, the British one, but then the Scream Factory, the 3-disc steelbook set. That one, the first disc that they put in there, it's the newer 4K scan, and the same as the Arrow one that I watched. And then playing it back on my 4K TV with the 4K player and everything looks really, really good. And so even then I'll still say that even if it's not true 4K, like it looks pretty darn close. And so you can definitely do that. And obviously the more recent that your film was shot, the easier time you'll have with how good it looks. And it makes perfect sense. But and that's something that you'll notice with some of those, even if they're shot on film, but like just the age of the film prints themselves, and then they put it in 4K, and it's like, well, yeah, no wonder it looks as good as it does. And well, the fact that Lawrence of Arabia looked as good as it did, that is kind of miraculous, because there are certain elements of that film that are lost, or they had to, like in the 80s, they had to redub certain lines because they couldn't find that particular line of dialogue anymore, or something like that. So just the fact that it exists in that kind of restored version, at all, I think is pretty remarkable. So good on you for getting that. But yeah, I think Criterion will have to catch up with that. We were talking initially about Michael Bay there with The Rock and Armageddon, which I wouldn't mind seeing those get the Blu-ray treatment, because like the special features that were on those DVDs, like they were fake 16:9. They weren't actual 16:9 in their aspect ratio. But the actual abundance of features was better than the normal DVD release and better than the normal Blu-ray release. But I would like to see those get a Blu-ray release, plus one that I would love to see that I highly doubt they'll ever put out, but I would love to see Pain and Gain get a Criterion release. I think that's a very underrated kind of satirical dark comedy.
I myself came across a film called Killer of Sheep by Charles Burnett.
What was it called?
Killer of Sheep.
Okay.
And it's by Charles Burnett, and it's like a mockumentary. And it's on a 2-disc set with like a bunch of other of his short films. KJ, who used to be on with us, he told me about this film, and it's basically set in Los Angeles, surrounding a slaughterhouse worker, and it's about the emotions around his job, and I guess he has a little sensitivity for the family that he has to support. And I wouldn't mind a Criterion Collection version of this film and his short films. Because I don't think a lot of African American filmmakers get a lot of notice.
Oh yeah.
Entirely too much, and I think that these films seem to be more towards the Criterion end. So far that I've seen of them, but KJ recommended them to me, and I think that they're actually really cool.
One point I wanted to make, and I didn't get a chance because I had to run upstairs for when you were talking about releases. I mean, one thing that they could do that I think would be a benefit, because people are moving away from physical media, unfortunately, but I think that it would be something cool, like something that Arrow does, like with this set, good example, this house set with all of the films, which never came out in the United States. I don't know why they have against releasing 3 and 4, but that one actually, though it says region B, it's a region-free set. And I really think that they need to start, I think more of these releases need to start moving towards region-free when it comes to something like Criterion, like Arrow, because in reality, these are more of it's not sort of like these individual releases that are here just purely to make money in one area.
I've never really believed in the region coding. I really...
Yeah, it's kind of bullshitty.
Well, that's why 4K is their region free now. That's the reason why I'm like, well, it shows that region is not as necessary for a lot of these people anymore. So to me, Criterion should go region free. Like this plays in my Blu-ray player here. I don't have to go upstairs to my region free player, and that's awesome because I love this set and I love these 4 movies on here. I'm not sure I would recommend them for Criterion, but they are. But it's a good example of something that's in that. We might need to go ahead and wrap up to move on, since it is at 10 o'clock on the East Coast. And I know some of you probably have to go to bed and work, and like me. So we'll just do some brief introductions. So, Dana, what's been new on your channel?
Well, I'm Dane Kyle, aka Dane Damarung on YouTube. I'm on the channel Indie Horror Film Creative. I haven't gotten a whole lot of pickups in a while, so I haven't done too many of those episodes. But I also, that being said, I've done a lot more in the way of just overall kind of show and tell videos with a specific theme. So, like, it's one of those things where it's like I'm up late at night and I can't sleep and I just want to talk to the camera for a bit. I talked about the subject of romance as told to us through horror films, which I thought, there's something that people aren't necessarily going to talk about. And so that was a recent one. But then right now I've been trying to get more on Twitter than I have been, even though, like, part of why I haven't really is because I hate Twitter with a passion, and I always have, and always will. But it is nonetheless useful for getting in touch with people that you wouldn't normally get in touch with on a more direct level. For me, it's like I hate the fact that Twitter is such a cesspool of nothing really constructive coming out of it. So that's why for me, I always make sure whatever I'm saying, I make sure that I really just try to put out positivity and compliments. I don't go picking fights with anybody or anything like that, which I wouldn't, recommend doing anyway, but, online or not online, but, nonetheless, so I try to do that. And then also, I've been and that way I can promote the episodes I've already done. There are going to be a few things that are coming in the mail pretty soon, but it's such that the overall flow of it will have to slow down as I transition more into, responsible adult life and all that kind of stuff. But nonetheless, I'll be continuing to do some more just kind of talking to the camera about movies of a specific theme, but then also eventually I want to build a desktop PC that's specifically dedicated for film editing, so that way I can do more sophisticated things outside of vlogs, because my current laptop I highly doubt would be up to the task, but you never know. But yeah, it's just I'm doing that, plus working on the film Heir of the Witch by my friend Victoria Bell Moore, and that will be shooting very soon. And so I've been helping out with that. And then also I actually hooked up one of my co-stars in Dark Web Mystery Box. I hooked her up with the producer for Axe 2 Grind, the sequel to the first Axe to Grind, and so she's now in the movie because I advocated for her, and so she's really, really excited for that. It was Rhiannon Nicole who was in the movie, and she is going to be in there, so hopefully I get a special thanks or something out of that. But yeah, so I'm really just trying to, at this point, make good use of what all I have and what all I can have in the near future, plus really trying to just get myself reorganized because of the coronavirus. Obviously doesn't make it easy to just, hey guys, let's get together and make something. I mean, Heir of the Witch, like, we're having to make sure that we are going through all the proper precautions and legal paperwork and stuff to make sure that it's a safe environment and all that kind of stuff. But it seems to be going well so far. It's one of those things where a lot of the ease of that kind of stuff is not what it once was, but hopefully it won't be that way forever. But nonetheless, actually the comic book that I had to put on hold for a while, that seems to be starting back up again because I found another artist that wants to help make it possible, and I think his style might actually be fit. It might actually fit the story better. It's one that's heavily influenced by German Expressionism. So might have talked about that some time ago, but yeah, that seems to be starting back up again, and that's something I don't have to worry about a whole crew for or anything like that.
A very awesome thing indeed. At least what I've seen and read about it, it looks to be something. Well, I think both should be something to look forward to.
Oh yeah.
And Dave, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is David Streggy. I'm one of the founding fathers of Inside Movies Galore. And what we do is we go on and discuss films the way we do best. And we've had some fun doing it. In fact, tomorrow night, we are going on with a pre-show of the independent feature from X Strike Studios, I believe, called Project Snake. And then afterwards, we're going on about another film starting our superhero month called Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Oh, yeah.
So those are some exciting things coming up. And then I also moonlight under a different channel called Delusions of Grandeur, which it's not dead in the water, but I do plan on still putting some stuff together. Just got over the 4th of July hump because I had to work and whatnot and go and visit family. But now I can get back to watching movies and going on and reviewing them and doing some video pickup. I've been in the process of putting a large video pickup video, at least of some of the stuff that I've gotten over the past 2 months. So that should be eventually showing up eventually. So definitely keep a lookout for that and anything else that I might have in store for us.
I really
I know eventually I'll have a Leaf Junker interview on the horizon sometime because of his Arrow release eventually coming out. I just haven't heard word on when and where yet. So that I'll let everyone know what happens on that note when it happens.
And definitely enjoyed the House on Haunted Hill stuff that you did not too long ago, which was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, thank you. Yeah, I also do some pretty cool discussions with a friend of mine from Croatia, and we call him Boris because that is a character that he had in the anthology Dark Zone 13. But his real name is Philippe, and he's a wonderful fan of independent horror films.
So, Jake, did you have anything to add before we wrap up today?
Well, I'm Jake, as you all know, since you watch the channel, 'cause you're awesome. And yes, I will be definitely involved in our discussions on Delusions of Grandeur with low budget espionage and with the Inside Movies Galore with Into the Spider-Verse, which is a flippin' awesome film. And of course, I frequently hang out on this channel where we have an extra long preview discussion this week, but there was a lot of stuff coming out. And then a nice quick pickup video that was a lot of fun. And I'm just now looking at this pickup and realizing that the commentary is by Bruce Campbell. I love it.
I see that. Yeah.
Great. I'll have to watch the commentary track on principle. But at any rate, and I am slowly but surely putting pieces into place to relaunch my channel. It's going slow. But all right.
Well, with that being said, I hope you all enjoy. Of course, we'll come back next week with another Criterion discussion, just because that the sale will actually be on. Maybe we talk about stuff we're thinking about getting if we get anything. So we'll pick up where we left off. So if any of y'all like this, check in next week. Thank you all again. It's been great having y'all's expertise and different opinions. Yeah. And I hope to see y'all next week.
Bye.
Fare thee well.